Welcome to A Matter of Perspective with Judge Derwin Webb. I am Derwin Webb, coming to you from a new location. Normally we shoot at the Fraser History Museum. Today we are shooting from the Ed Hamilton Studios.
Indeed.
We are honored today to have a living legend. We don't say that lightly. We have a lot of people come on, and we don't use that term lightly, but really we're honored to be with the Ed Hamilton. Brother Hamilton, welcome to our show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm
Well,
glad to be here.
no-
I'm glad to be in my space.
Well,
I'm glad
this,
you're in my space.
Well, this is your space.
That's right.
So, and
You-
I've never been in a space like this.
Yeah.
You asked me earlier, is it what I expected? Never been with a person like you, so I didn't know what to expect. But I'm very happy to be able to be here today, to be able to, as they say, chop it up with you for a few minutes
That's
and
right.
talk about
Yeah.
you, talk about your life.
I appreciate that.
I know that you are a sculptor, but
Mhm.
I do a lot of research on people. But it was great to be able to see some of the things that you did before you became a sculptor. Your first love was actually painting.
That's right.
Tell
It
me
was.
about you being a painter.
Well, when you go to art school, that's the main course that you have to take. They teach you to draw, and then from drawing to 2D, and then to painting. Sculpture comes later because you have to learn the fundamentals. And so as I was taking my painting course while I was in art school, I always kept looking at that back room because you'd have to pass through the painting studio to get to the sculpting studio. But there was something about the physicality of sculpture that so intrigued me because I grew up downtown. I grew up in the heart of the black business district. And when you grow up in a city, there's so many things that your surroundings, buildings, art pieces, all kind of physicality things. And so I guess that was a part of my physical makeup. When I'm painting 2D and I can't get around it. I want to touch it, you see? So I have to make the illusion of what I'm trying to create to pop out of that canvas. But when you take a piece of clay and a stone or wood, you do the whole thing in the round. And that's what I was so into. I just needed to be able to touch something and see it in the round. So painting to me was okay. I liked it. I was good at it. But I'm going to tell you the truth about it. If I had stayed a painter, you wouldn't be talking to me today. I was not the Picasso of paint.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's talk about your time at the art studio, at the School of Art.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I got a 4-year scholarship to go to art school. I didn't know I wasn't on a college track when I was in high school, and I was at Shawnee. And two things really happened prior to that. I'd already signed up to go to Duval Middle School. And for some reason, my mom injected and said, no, you're going to Parkland Junior High. Then, when it came time to leave Parkland and go to Central, I signed up for Central. I was had my schedule. All of a sudden again, no, I think you're going to go to Shawnee. Now, two things happened. The teacher at Parkland saw something in me. And when I heard her say, I'm going to call your mother, and I'm thinking, well, what did I do something? I wasn't a bad kid now, mind you. What she was calling her for, she said, I think he's got something, and I want to help develop. When I graduated from Parkland Junior High and matriculated to Shawnee High, the very same thing happened again. It was through Patsy Griffith at Shawnee High and Harriet O'Malley at Parkland Junior High. Those two teachers were the biggest influence on me becoming who I am today within the arts. Because if it takes somebody to see you, to see that you have something within you
Right.
and to help develop it, And that's what we're all about. When kids come in and they want to be an artist, they want to do this, but I have to explain to them that it doesn't happen overnight. You got to work at it. You can't come in here and not get dirty. You see, so after high school, Patsy Griffith said, "You're going to art school." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool."
Didn't ask you, just kind of told you.
Didn't ask me, just told me, you're going to art school. So I actually have several of my high school paintings and one sculpture here in the studio
Okay.
that when we were in high school, we would submit stuff for the Bottle Art Show at the Board of Education that used to be on Hill Street. And we'd get awards and stuff like that. And so there was a wonderful dear friend of ours, Anna Huddleston. She's gone on now. She was the art resource teacher for the Jefferson County Board of Education. See, so she would come all around all the schools and gather. We would do our works, and she would gather them, and then they would put on an exhibition at the Board of Education. So through her is how I got some of my high school works back. She brought them to me here before she passed away. She said, I want you to have these back. And I thought, well, that's sometimes you don't get your stuff back unless you take it home when you graduate from school, Now, so art school allowed me to become who I am. And after I graduated from art school, I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Well, that meant either you could teach art or just go out and find you a 9-to-5, okay? So I was fortunate that I became an art teacher at Iroquois High School, teaching ceramics and sculpture. For 3 years I did that, and the big break came when I was going to went out to buy supplies one day, and the ceramic shop is on Frankfort Avenue, 2031 Frankfort Avenue. But that address not only was for the ceramic shop, it was for the person who was in the same building who I had been following as an art student, and his name was Barney Bright. He was the only sculptor in Louisville, Kentucky, and the surrounding territories that was really making a living at his craft. See, I followed his work when I was in art school, and I'd go to the museum, Speed Museum, and I'd see his work. He'd be in exhibitions there and stuff. See, and I said, I got to find this man. But I just didn't know when that was going to happen.
Right.
Man, I tell you, this particular spring day, got in the car, left Iroquois, stopped in the ceramic shop, knew Barney Bright's studio. The only thing that separated the ceramic shop and Barney's studio was a wall. So if you're in the ceramic shop, you can't see Barney's. But if you come outside, you can see his front door. And something, should I go knock on the door or something? So the gentleman who ran the ceramic shop, wonderful little elderly guy by the name of Daniel King, loved to talk, get you in a conversation. You just can't go in, buy something, and walk out, So I'm looking at I said, oh, Daniel, I got to get out of here, man. I got to get back to school. So I loaded up the car. Now I'm parked right out in front on Frankfort Avenue, in front of Barney's studio as well as the ceramic shop. And I get in the car. Now it's 1973, 70s, the Superfly era. I got this bouffant afro, man. I ain't like, oh, baby, it was beautiful, man. Coffee wood, got my big collar shirt on, my bell-bottom pants, So I'm sitting in the car, get in the car, and I look over at Mr. Bright's front door. And I'm thinking, no, he ain't gonna let me in, And so just when I got ready to turn the ignition key to start the car. His front door opened. He walked out the front door to check his mailbox. Something possessed me. Something said, get the out of the car. I got out of the car very carefully. I walked over to him. I said, Mr. Bright, I'm Ed Hamilton, and I know your works. I've followed your works. I've seen your works. And I don't really know specifically what I totally said because I was just kind of,
Awestruck.
awestruck. But I do know this. I know this in the bottom of my heart. I remember him saying, sure, come on in. I crossed that threshold. Changed my life. We sat there, we talked. He said, well, where'd you go to school? I said, well, I went out to the Art Center School on University of Louisville campus. He said, I taught out there. He said, I saw a piece one day out in front of the school. Now, we were advanced sculpture students. We would make something like a life-size figure or something and put it on this 2x2x2 limestone block out front. And it sat out there maybe a couple of weeks and somebody come along and they bring somebody put something else out there. We rotate, see. He said, I saw something out there one day and I said, I'd like to tell that student that they got possibilities, And I said, well, what did it look like? He said, well, it was kind of a rough, figurative piece. And at the time, I was studying Rodin, Auguste Rodin's work, the sculptor out of Paris, France. See, just fell in love with his works. Oh my God. I was taking every book I could out of the library of his works. So he said, yeah, it was a figurative piece and his arm was kind of over like this and the head was twisted or whatever. I said, that was my piece. It was a takeoff of his piece that he called Adam. That was on his Gates of Hell that he created.
I've seen that, yes.
He said, I'd be darned. So that, generated even more conversation. And he said, I got a job coming up. And I said, Mr. Bright, I'm ready. I'm ready. So I couldn't wait to get home to tell Bernadette. I said, babe, you ain't gonna believe who I met today. And I think she knew. She said, who? Barney Bright? I said, yes. And he's offered me a position. I said, I won't be going back to school. And that's it. That was the moment where I knew what I wanted to do.
Before then, did you have a clue?
Of what I wanted to do?
Right.
Well, my wife did. She thought we would both teach school and retire on the hill, with a house on the hill. But it didn't work out that way.
Let me ask you this. You knew what you wanted to be. You knew at that point that you were made to do what you were going to do. How many people discouraged you along the way? And the reason why I say that is because I know for sure that as an artist, a lot of people will say, you can't make a living as an artist. What did you do when people would discourage you?
Darren, truthfully, I never got that from anybody. The only time I ever got a discouragement situation was when I was trying to apply for an art job someplace before I was doing my teaching. And I knew why, because it was of this. Well, you do good work, but we not hiring. I can't tell you how many places, graphic design places I walk into, show my portfolio, and they say, it's nice, but we not hiring. I said, okay. But I never ever got that, boy, you can't do this. Are you crazy? You better go out and get a real job. And I don't know why that, maybe because I was so in tune with what I wanted to do and I kept at it and I was tenacious. And I think when people see that, well, maybe that boy, maybe he's gonna do something with this,
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
So Maybe if I had been in another area, another town or something, I don't know, it might have come out like that, you know. But no, I've always had the support of my community, my my family. You know, nobody ever said you can't do this.
Right. Mr. Bright changed a lot of things for you. How has his work, his influence, influenced your work today?
Well, his work influenced me early on
Okay.
because when you meet that person that you're trying to emulate and you want to be, your work starts looking very much similar to that style, you see. It finally arrived in my head that, wait a minute, I got to find my own path. I can't be a little Barney Bright. I got to be a Ed Hamilton. And so there was a natural moment of a break from the way that I was creating my works, because in the beginning, I was trying to create his style, as well as when I was in art school trying to emulate Rodin. You see, and that's what you can't help but do that. You
Right.
can't, you know, because you're so influenced.
Right.
You know, even as painters, when we were in painting class, we're studying. Who are we studying? We're studying Robert Motherwell. We're studying Jasper Johns. You know, what art discipline painting school you might like. So you're trying to emulate that. You see, so it's not really you. You just kind of doing what has already been done, only in your way, you see. So there's got to be a natural break when you're so influenced by somebody. And so there are pieces up in the shelf up there in that white, when you come through the door on that shelf there, that's very much Barney-esque. But those are the early things.
Right.
So I evolved over time.
Well, I say this. I'm a former basketball player, and growing up, of course, as a basketball player, I wanted to be Julius Erving.
Yeah, no question.
Later on, I saw Michael Jordan play, so I wanted to be
Wanna
like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, I wanted to be like the best lawyer. As a judge,
Thurgood
I see
Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall. I
Yeah.
want to be like Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
I don't know two people on earth that can do the stuff that you do. I just know you.
Well,
So,
there are more than
I'm sure there are, but I guess for the layperson, for people like me, people that may be listening to this, what goes into the process of creating a sculpture? How do you create one?
Well, there's two train of thoughts of creating a sculpture. Sculpture comes in many forms and fashions. In here, you see clay models. Now, you may go to another sculptor's studio who is just a stone carver. Or you may go to another sculptor's studio who may be a wood carver. Now, in art school, I had to do it all. And that allowed me to find out which ones I didn't want to do. I did wood carving, I did stone carving. When I got into the clay bin and got the clay, that's where I found myself. So there's so many disciplines. One, you know, there's so many disciplines within the sculpting range that I have to have a knowledge of all of it, but I don't have to do it all. You see, but I do have to be an architect. I have to be an engineer. I have to be the man who controls all the materials and knows what I'm doing, my tools. I even make my own tools sometimes, because when I'm doing anything large, little clay tools don't cut it. I might have to increase the scale of those clay tools. And I've got some bigger than this, just by virtue of what I'm doing, you see. So I'm a modeler, and and people think sculptors. Every time somebody says, "Well, Ed, what do you carve? What are you banging on there?" I said, "I'm not banging on anything. I'm not a carver. I'm an applier. I'm a you are a takeawayer, and I'm building as I go along." See, so it comes. I guess it came natural to me. I don't know. It's hard to say, how does this happen? Where's the magic?
Right.
There's a magic in here somewhere.
Right.
But I can't put my fingers on it. I don't know.
Well,
All I know is it happens.
well, I talked earlier when I introduced you talking about being a living legend. So people know you not only in the city, they know you across the world. You have pieces everywhere. Um, do you have a favorite piece?
Not well. Let me say this.
Okay,
I,
talk about possibly your favorite piece, and then talk about possibly the most complicated one that you've had
oh,
to do.
the most complicated one would have to be the Spirit of Freedom,
On
Washington
DC.
D.C.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because it it had, let me see, one, two, three, four figures on the front and four figures on the back side. And but then when I looked even before the Spirit of Freedom, there was the 12-foot standing Joe Louis for the city of Detroit. Before him was the 9-foot Booker T standing up here. So when I look at the totality of the pieces that I've done, it's not that I have a favorite because they're all a part of my muse, but they're also a part of my children. So how do I say, well, I like my daughter better than I like my
Right.
son?
Right. I get
You know
that.
what I mean?
I get that. Yeah.
But you love them all. You love them in the same way. But because some have technical difficulties, and more uh, difficulties in making them, for instance, the Spirit of Freedom, it was just so many components and things that I had to think about, and how am I going to put these on here, and where are these figures going to come out of, and how am I
And,
going
and,
to
and that
build
was made
this
here?
right here on this platform, right here. All of them, everything I've done has been here. And so, and I wanted that job so bad, man. I wanted that job because every sculptor longs to have something in a major principality, D.C., New York, L.A., Chicago,
Chicago. Right.
no question about that. But that was going to be the most, I think when I look back now on it, that has to be probably one of the most important pieces that I've done because of what it generated uh, historically all over the world, the documentation on it, and this, that, and one thing and another. I mean, it was just writ up in everything. But then I can't, I can't not allow the Amistad to be
Right.
important
Right.
too now, because that was a very important job too. You know about the
I
Amistad.
do.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So they all, I don't, I wonder sometimes how did this little Kentucky boy get these important, and I call them, they are important commissions. I don't know.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm.
How long does it take to make something like that? Let's talk about Spirit of Freedom. How long did it take you to not only, well, I'll put it like this, to get it to completion where it's ready for public view?
That that piece started in 1992, right after I came off of Amistad. I saw something in the Jet magazine that they wanted to honor at that time, they only said 185,000 colored soldiers, okay? And so, and in the Jet magazine, they listed the Arts and Humanities Council up in D.C. So I got a letter off to them and said, if and when you get ready to let this out, please consider me. And they did. So I became one of 4 finalists for that particular commission. Now, we had to go to D.C. Now, this is about 1994 at this point, okay? We had to come to D.C., meet the committees, and as fate would have it, the late councilman,
Paul Bather.
no, the early before Bather,
Okay.
he just passed. Mazzoli.
Okay. Congressman
Romano
Mazzoli.
Mazzoli.
Yes.
We knew each other, and he knew that I was going to be competing for this job. So you know what he did? He sent me a copy of the Washington Post before I had to make my trip to meet the committees. And so in that Washington Post article was the whole article based on the revitalization of the U Street corridor down in D.C. So I boned up, got there, met the architects, met the actual committee person who started this whole concept thing. And I say this because 2 other artists showed up. The other artists did not, whom I had to compete with. They were not chosen. So I was chosen, and the other gentleman was chosen. So at that point, we're looking at 1994, 1995 comes along, and we have to start conceptualizing. So now I'm sketching, trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do, And they didn't want to rush the process because the architects wanted to pick the person they felt they worked best with. So that's when I became a team player with the architects. The other committee man who was in charge of it really didn't want me. He wanted the other guy. So as I had already done these other various commissions, I would always say, you know what? If you want this, you better come to win. You want it, don't play, because I'm coming to win. Now, mind you, if I don't get it, hey, more power to you. You got it. You're a good man. I applaud you. See, but don't take us for granted, because I'm coming to win.
Right.
Just like you on the basketball court. It's competitive. You out there to win.
Right.
See. So anyway, from 1994 to 5 was just the concepts of dealing with the bureaucracy of D.C., contracts, the legalities from here to D.C., back and forth. So I didn't really get started on the actual small clay model, plaster version up there, until late 95. So I'm working on that, see? And by the time I finished that, in 1996 was when that was accepted. And then I started working on conceptual, getting it scaled up big. So what are we looking at? 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. It was dedicated in 97, 98. That's 7 years. Now, not 7 years working on the piece, but 7 years of all kind of going back and forth, paperwork, legalities, our lawyer looking at their contractual stuff, sending that stuff back, agreeing to this, agreeing to that, It's just, it was a mess, man, but had to be done.
Right.
And I always tell these artists, stop thinking you're going to get a job on a handshake. That's over. You got contracts, find you a good lawyer. And that's what we did early on. So that's very important.
Right.
So the Spirit of Freedom was dedicated in 1998. And it's history now,
Let me ask you this question, and it's not necessarily a question about artistic work, but I read recently that an artist looks at the world differently. The views are different. Their lens is different from just about everyone else. You've had an opportunity to see a lot of different things. Civil rights, 1 and 2, as I like to call it. Sometimes people talk about what we're going through right now is another civil rights movement.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How do you see the world right now through your lens?
Not
I know
too.
that's a very broad question, but
Yes.
how do you see the world through your
Well,
lens?
I want to see the world to become a better world, in with compassion. I want to see people. The way the political system is running now is just, it's ridiculous. It hurts, really. It just literally hurts. And I just think that in order to become more human, these people need to become more humanity, man. We need more humanity. And why can't we just live together, you know? Ain't that what Rodney King said?
Can we all just get
Can we all
along?
just get along? Why can't we just get along? But some people just can't deal with it, man. You know. So I'm optimistic. You know, I'm an artist, and I think what I do has optimism for people to be able to take away, and that's a good thing. You know. So I want to be optimistic that at some point things are gonna be better.
Let me ask you this question. What are you telling the people that are knocking on your door, people that want your advice, people that want to be you? What are you telling them? What are you telling young artists
Go
today?
out and learn all you can, and don't try to be somebody you're not. I think I take away from what I took away from Barney, and I take away what we did at the Louisville Art Workshop when I learned from G. Callum Cox, who was the dean of black art here. You've heard of Sam Gilliam. You've heard of Bubba Thompson. You've heard of Robert Carter. All of these were my heroes as I was coming up as a youngster. And so it's so important that I tell them, look, learn all you can. Do all you can. Meet that person who can help you to become who you want to be. But don't try to be that person. Be your own person, you know. And I've done that myself. I've tried to emulate, but then it was a matter of, hey, wait a minute, hold on now. I can't be somebody else I'm not, you know. I got to find my way. And what is my way? It's the only thing that I know is my way is the highway. And that's where I'm going for myself. But what I try to give other people advice is to go out there and be the best you can, you know, and that's the whole issue. Just be who you are, and be a person that says, hey, be kind, be compassionate, and don't wear your talent on your sleeve. You know, I go to Kroger sometime and I hear people whisper, "Isn't that Ed Hamilton?" And I turn around and say, "Is he here? Where is?" I'm not lying. Is he really here? You know, I don't feel like I have to be important just because of acknowledging some print. You know, when they write, you know, all you got to do is be in the newspaper, and all of a sudden, oh, you know, you become somebody, or you see yourself on TV. Oh, now you're important. No, that's not the way it is. That's not the way it is. And I never want to be at that level. You know,
Right.
I'm humble of heart, and I will always shake a hand, pat her back. You know what I mean? Give some solid advice, and just be the person that God made me.
Well, I know that's true because you let me in here, so
Oh,
I
I wouldn't.
appreciate it. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have done differently along the way?
Well, you know what? That's a good question. What would I have done differently? And I got to say truthfully, I think I think I did the right thing. The right thing in that I met the right woman.
Which is important.
I had a mother who believed in me, and my father, of course, he died early. But I had a mother who supported me. But then, I had another side of me that you may not know or you may know that I found out that I had been adopted.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
I
about
didn't
that,
know
but
that.
I was going to try and
So
figure out how to transition to that.
I've actually been able to live and interact with two mothers.
Okay.
The one that gave me birth and the one that raised me here. And thank God the one that gave me birth didn't wash me down. But and thank God the woman who came to Cincinnati and brought this little boy to Louisville. So what a blessing that has been, and knowing how what I have achieved in this town, because you're never a prophet in your own hometown.
Right. Right.
And I'm always telling the younger artists, look, you can do your work, and it doesn't really matter where you are, because if you do good work, they will find you. Okay. But you have to get your stuff out, because unless somebody stamps you outside of your environment, you're just a good old boy here. You see. So I have been lucky in that I was able to have the right people, the right time, the right moment, to have a place to do my works, to have people who believed in me. So if I had to do it all over again, I guess the moment would be where would you start? People ask, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it?
Because I was going to ask you a follow-up question. Would you be an artist?
Oh yeah, no question.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask
But I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be a sculptor. I just knew I was able to do with my
Right.
hands.
I'll give you a follow-up question. If you were not an artist, what would you be?
Oh boy.
I know you've been a teacher. What would you be?
I'd be an engineer. I'd be an architect, maybe.
In some ways, you're those
Yeah,
already.
because
Yeah.
I make site models. I have to know. I have to know blueprints. I might have been an architect, maybe. I don't know. Engineer might have been a little heavy for me.
Let me ask you
But
this.
yeah.
Let me ask you this question. If you were having a sculpture made of you, who would do that?
Oh Lord.
Can't do it yourself.
No, I can't do
Even
it.
though you could, but
Yeah, well,
who would you want to do you?
I would think I would want my brother, who is a hell of an artist right now in his own right, that discovered me and I discovered him, and then we came together. And can I say his name?
Sure.
William Duffy.
Okay.
We met when I took charge of the old Louisville Art Workshop at 35th and Dale Park Terrace. And he saw me in a newspaper article when I got that job. And he said, I got to meet this. Just like I said, I got to meet Barney Bright. He said, I got to meet him. And somehow we all came together. And I brought him along when I got my first away from home studio at 712 West Main Street. I brought him along, and G. Calvin Cox along, and the late Fred Bond along. And Fred Bond was the one that started him and Bob Douglas created the Louisville Art Workshop. And at the time, I had no concept of black artists. When I was matriculating through art school, I thought I was the only black artist in town. I swear to God. Because they wasn't teaching, nobody was teaching us about that, see? So when I discovered these guys, man, you know, it was a whole nother paradigm, another world, you know, of learning. Diaspora, Africa, Bob Douglas, who is a hell of a professor when it comes to teaching about African art and you know, black art. Matter of fact, his studio's upstairs, upstairs.
He's one of my professors at
And
U of L.
was he one of your
So,
professors?
yes, he was. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, where was I? I lost my train of thought. What were we?
We were talking about who would sculpt you.
Who was going? Yeah, I'd like to see Duffy sculpt me.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. Last question. I have mistakenly in the past said to people who've been on this show, how do you want to be remembered? Because I've had people after the show was over, man, you trying to get me to die? No, that's not the answer. That's not the question I'm asking. How do you want people to see you? Obviously, you're well-known, well-renowned. People see you in a certain light. How do you want to be seen?
I want them to know that I followed my path. I want them to know that anytime you stopped there at Hamilton, you were getting ready to get into a conversation. I want them to know that I'm humble enough to not think myself important. And I want them to know that I put the time in and I made it work.
I do have one last question, so I lied to you. One last question. One last question. Are you at liberty to talk about what your next project is? Or do you want me to say that you're working on something important?
I'm working on something important.
Okay. I will take that. Brother Hamilton, sculptor,
Yeah.
artist, doctor,
doctor.
my
if you
fraternity,
want
my fraternity brother.
Fraternity brother. Yes.
Man, it's an honor.
Yeah.
It's an honor to have you on this show today.
Well, I'm very honored that you wanted to.
And I appreciate it so much. We go through a lot of people that we think that we want to have on the show, but this was important for us. So we appreciate you coming on today.
I appreciate
Thank you for
that.
being a part of A Matter of Perspective. As we like to close the show, we always like to say, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I think. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of perspective.
I hear you.
Brother, thank you very much for being here.
My man.
All right.